Hey, this is Tracy Lewis from Stuffin' Things. This is another installment of Winter is Coming Wednesday. I'm going to change gears a little bit, and I want to work on envelopes, which I do every year. I at least create one video, sometimes two, on envelopes, which I think are really important. When I was local, I could make my cards really fat. I could really decorate my envelopes. So the last couple of years that I've been traveling, actually 3, this will be the 4th year, time just flies. I usually talk about US mailing parameters and costs. And I try to keep current and periodically do that throughout the year. So this particular stamp and die set called to me because I love to decorate envelopes. The other reason why it called to me is that I never fill out my envelopes in a straight line because I'm left-handed and I always end up writing crooked no matter what I do. So I liked the dots, these dots here, to keep me in a straight line. So I'm going to talk about a couple of aspects of envelopes, share a card at the end, and then next week I am going to possibly fill in a little more information about envelopes as a concluding envelope installment, as well as make Thanksgiving envelopes, or not envelopes, sorry, Thanksgiving cards. Now I'm waiting on an order that I placed, so it's possible it'll have to go to a 3rd week, and next week might be a filler while I wait for my products to come for the Thanksgiving edition. Okay, so what's unique about this set is there are dies that are used. I don't believe they're in here. They are not, because they're in my handy dandy. I have if I'm working on a certain set of dies, I usually throw them in here, and this is always on my desk. So yep, there they are. So there's these 3 dies that I wanted to talk about, tips on using them, as well as this is the middle size die cut for the size of envelopes that Stampin' Up sells. It's their medium envelopes, and they are A2 size envelopes. So if I open this back up, you get 4 sizes, pardon me, of envelope liners, as I will call them for this video. Don't know what their formal name is. So this must be for like a 5x7 envelope, and I am not sure what this size is, but I confirmed that the middle size here is the A2 size. So that is what I have been cutting with. And then I'm going to talk a little bit. These are what I'll talk about specifically is the Stampin' Up envelopes, because that is all I have right now. There's probably, you know, like colored other different types of paper thickness envelopes. So depending on what you have, my information may or may not be true. But in general, Stampin' Up envelope is a very smooth finish, and it is about, I would say, 24 pounds. It's like a heavy, glossy, like a high quality feeling inkjet printer paper or laser printer paper that you would buy in a ream. So the trick with these papers is they do wrinkle very easily, and they are not like cutting a 60+ pound cardstock. So if you're die cutting them, I have some tips. You will see that on this, if I can get the angle right, there is an indentation. And the goal for me is to try not to get my envelopes indented when I'm running them through the die cutter. So I'm going to reveal to you my plates. I don't know how you guys keep your plates and what kind of condition you keep them per se, but my plates are, I would say my cutter is a very small cutter because of traveling. Sorry, I'm running over some paper that should not be underneath my wheels. Sorry. So this plate I got this cutter before I left on my travels. So I've had the cutter for at least 4 years, and I have never changed this plate. All I do is I reverse back and forth. So you can see that this is a very, very cut into plate. And the top plate that I have has had some accidental cuts, a few here and there, and it even has some indents where I've had to really, for the like, these are the butterfly dies, they're very intricate, so I've had to make them run through really, really tight. So here's the strategy. Whatever your stack is that you need for your plates, your goal is to not end up having a line like I have right here on mine. So here's what you need to do. If I get my, we'll pull out one of the decorative, we'll say it's this one, okay? And it is on the plate. Have on hand, these are very old sheets. They are varying thickness. The S means it's a shim, and they're so old. I have used these same shim sheets forever. This is some sort of heavy, this is heavier than Whisper White. So is this one. And this one feels like it might be about, so Whisper White is a 65 pound. These feel more like 80 pound. And you're going to set your envelope on the plate that you want the die to cut into. Then what you want to do, you still have to place your top protective plate like this. However, you want to make sure two things. First, that all of this busyness is not touching your envelope. So I'm putting a shim underneath. I put the shim underneath to the line. Then I need some padding because this is only 24 pound paper, and I typically always have to shim. Your die cutter might not need a shim. It really depends on the age. Now my die cutter actually landed on the highway years ago in an accident, and it still works, but it is definitely not the same as it once was. So I slip in however many shims I think I'm gonna need, and I've done this a little bit different. Okay, actually I shim underneath the plate, and you can shim if you want all the way through. This one shim is a protective sheet, and you can't really protect this part of the envelope. It would be nice if we could, but we can't, because you don't want to cut. If you do want to throw away, say have throwaway shim paper, you're welcome to do what I was first suggesting, which is underneath the envelope, but it will cut through your shim. You only get one shot. So what I did is I put it underneath so that this half still maintains its thickness underneath, so that you can get a cut through this very fine 24 pound like copy paper thickness. And that's how I do my shim. And then I set this underneath. This goes through ahead of time, and this whole stack runs through. Now that I've tried to illustrate it, I'm gonna go get my cutter out and show you what it looks like to put it together. And it might take a time or two for you to figure out the exact combination. I'm gonna have to move the camera up. And up some more. Okay. Sorry about the shaking. That's me moving around in the slide. Now I'm going to build my stack the way I would, as I just mentioned. Alright, so on the back half here, I want to protect my envelope. So I want my shim, I'll have to do it this way. to protect the body of the envelope, like so. On this half of the shim, I'm gonna have these shims go underneath. I think I only need one, and I need to, for my shimming. Oh, sorry, I'm shaking bad. I shim underneath my dirty plate that's been cut into many times. Okay. That shim is all the way up to the line I have verified. And then I still have my die that would go in place. I will tell you, I eyeball, and I have not used tape. If you're going to want a more exact measurements than just eyeballing and you need tape, be sure to use washi and run the washi along your clothing so that it is very non-tacky, or it will easily tear this envelope. Okay, so now I am putting on the top plate. Take the whole thing and run it through. So like I said, it takes a little bit to get used to what you need to do for the envelopes to keep them smooth. I already went through a couple of envelopes, so I wanted to share with you the fact that you will have to do a little fancy dancing to get everything just right. And I've ran it through. This one already had a line. This is one that I actually did not make sure that my plate, the top plate here, needs to go all the way across. So I was not careful. And the important thing that I needed to do is, let's say I put my plate to right here and ran it through. That will get you into trouble, and that will give you that crease that I showed you on my envelope. So make sure when you've got your stack underneath, that when you stack on top, that your top plate goes past the envelope bottom edge, or you will get a line and then you run it through. So hopefully that gives you some ideas about getting these top flap die cuts cut. All right, so then that handles the envelope itself getting cut. Now we have the cutting of the envelope liner. How I did these, I pre-cut. This is all DSP and it's double-sided. So you have the pretty part that will be on the inside, and you want something that's got a color on the back side, so that when you take your liner and you put it in, oh, I did it the opposite way. You want, in my case, I have foil, so I want the foil to be showing on the liner, very pretty. And then when you have it on the outside showing, it's just the solid color. What I would do, because this is a long loose die, I will be using a liquid glue with light dots all along on the inside to get my envelope liner adhered. And when I cut my envelope liner, I take, I had a sheet sitting out. I always cut my paper that I'm using down to card size A2 because that's all I work with, and very seldom do I need anything bigger, so my stuff gets cut down. I'm just using a solid cardstock. You can't really get two envelope liners out of a card base, so you line it up like so, you run it through, and then in the case of your DSPs, my DSP gets cut down to 4x6. So I'm just going to cheat and use a piece of foil that's just sitting right here, rather than dig for some pattern DSP. So when I'm cutting through the pattern DSP, it's cut 4x6. I'm sorry, I am standing up in my slide, and the unfortunate part about being in a trailer is it gets pretty shaky. And I can see it, so it really annoys me. So if it annoys you guys, it annoys me even more. So here's how I cut my liner, and then I take snips and I just cut straight off a little bit off each side. You could also use a small cutter. And then what I end up with is a piece that looks like this, and here was where I cut it, and there's where I snipped off the ends. Alright, so that is all I'm going to talk about on the running your envelope through to get your cutout piece. There are 3 pieces, and here's what they all 3 look like. So this is really pretty. In this case, this paper is the stars and the copper, and then this would be what's showing through, like that. And then the third design is the busiest design, and it looks like this. And I can see that the way this is open, you're going to want to tack down with some liquid glue, just like this pattern you'll want to tack down with liquid glue. That's just how I would handle it. If you have any other favorite very small delicate glue mechanism to use, then give it a try and see how it works. And that is all I'm going to do on the envelopes this week. Alright, so now I'm going to move on to the card. Next week I will talk about the addressing of the envelope and decorating that back side, as well as I will create a Thanksgiving card should my products arrive. If not, it'll have to wait a week and I'll fill something else in. So I used the ornaments here to create this card. It has 3 dry embossing elements and 1 heat embossed element, well, 2 of them actually. First, this layer of gold ornament, when I heat embossed, I made sure to heat emboss it long enough for the gold to soak in a little bit. I did not want it to be raised up like the vellum layer, which has the gold as like a 3D element and is where you want to stop heating normally. But I wanted to make sure when I ran through the subtle embossing folder next that the gold wouldn't crack. So I went ahead and let the gold soak in so it wasn't a 3D layer like this layer is. Then I ran it through this subtle embossing folder. This is shaded spruce, and the top layer is real red. The shaded spruce fishtail is embossed with Scripty, and the gold foil is embossed with the Evergreen Forest 3D embossing folder in the holiday catalog. Happy Christmas comes from Itty Bitty Christmas, which is also in the holiday catalog. Nope, that's in the annual catalog. And the die cut here is this little die cut. It's a tag that comes from the Ornate Frames dies set that is also in the annual catalog, and so is this thread that's a combo pack. And all of these supplies will be loaded up on my blog on the article that is linked in the description. So give me your thoughts, suggestions, comments. I did all of this standing, so I apologize for all of the shaking. When I'm standing, I'm actually in the slide itself, and the camera is hanging from the ceiling of the slide, so it's really hard for me to stand almost perfect when I'm trying to stand and video things and move around. So give me your comments, let me know what you think of the content, and again, this will continue as a second part either next week or the week after. Thanks for watching. All of the products you've seen demonstrated today from Stampin' Up! Are available on my store at stuffandthings.com/shop, which redirects you to Stampin' Up! I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I can sell to folks in the U.S. only. Before you go, please like this video, leave your comments, questions, and suggestions, and remember to subscribe to my channel for more card making tutorials.